I've always believed that a man's life is built on promises, vows made in the glow of hope and nurtured with sacrifice. My name is Max, and not too long ago, I willingly left behind the frenetic world of corporate finance to build an empire around my passion. A network of elite sports clubs in Miami. In pursuit of a future where both business and family could thrive, I poured my heart and soul into every decision I made. I built a comfortable home in a vibrant suburb, where mornings were greeted by the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee and evenings were spent in the gentle embrace of family laughter. It was in that life of hard-won achievements that I met Nayla, a woman whose radiant smile and sparkling wit enchanted me from our very first encounter. We met at a charity event hosted at one of my clubs. Amid the buzz of conversation and the pulse of Miami nightlife, her presence shone like a beacon. Our connection was instant and deep, unfolding naturally through shared interests and quiet moments of understanding. In time, our relationship grew organically. We traveled together on spontaneous trips along the sun-kissed coast, exploring hidden beaches and enjoying long, heartfelt conversations under starlit skies. I proposed to her one balmy evening on a rooftop overlooking the dazzling Miami skyline, and with an unhesitating yes, our futures merged. We soon moved into a charming, modest home that symbolized our new beginning. Our days were filled with simple rituals. A family breakfast around a sunlit table, weekend walks in the park, and evenings of soft conversation that weave dreams for our future. I took immense pride in the sacrifices I'd made for us. I believed that every renounced ambition was repaid in love and security, that the foundation of our life was unbreakable. Yet, amid the glow of our newfound happiness, I began to notice small anomalies. At first, they were barely perceptible. A text left unanswered a moment too long. A slight pause in Nayla's smile when she checked her phone. I reassured myself that she was simply an independent, driven woman, juggling her own responsibilities and passions. But as the days passed, a quiet seed of doubt was planted deep in my heart. A whisper that not every promise was as steadfast as it seemed. One crisp autumn morning, as golden light streamed through our windows, Nayla announced she was leaving for a business trip. "I have an important meeting in Fort Lauderdale," she explained with a practiced enthusiasm that I'd always admired. I embraced her tightly, convinced that her professional commitments would only enhance our shared future. Yet as I watched her drive away along the bustling highway, an inexplicable chill took root inside me. That evening, when our home settled into its familiar quiet and the children's soft snores filled the night, I opened my old leather journal and began to record every subtle detail. The lingering goodbye kiss, the furtive glance at her phone, and the extra minutes she took before disappearing into the night. I tried to dismiss these as mere imperfections of a busy life, unaware that the first hints of betrayal were already stirring in the shadows. Part 2. In the days following Nayla's departure, a heavy, unspoken stillness crept into our home. The once familiar chorus of laughter and lively conversation at our dinner table was replaced by a tentative, almost brittle silence. When Nayla returned, her recounting of the business trip was strangely clipped, her words carefully measured as if she were weighing what to say and what to hide. I began to notice small signals. The way her eyes involuntarily darted to her phone when she mentioned meeting a colleague, the subtle hesitation in her tone when referring to her travel schedule, and a slight tightening around her smile, an expression that once radiated openness now seemed guarded. Every night, after the children had been tucked into bed and our home sank into a reflective quiet, I retreated to my study. Beneath the gentle glow of my desk lamp, I began to document every observation in my journal. I noted the exact times Nayla left and returned, the brief silences that punctuated our conversations, and even the fleeting shifts in her laughter that hinted at hidden meanings. Initially, I told myself these were nothing more than the natural imperfections of a busy life, a byproduct of juggling work and home in a city that never sleeps. But as page after page filled with my careful notations, a disquieting pattern emerged. The small anomalies wove together into a tapestry of suspicion that I could no longer dismiss as coincidental. One particularly gray, rainy afternoon, when droplets softly tapped the window pane and the world outside seemed to share in my melancholy, I summoned the courage to ask, "How was your trip?" My voice was gentle, laced with an undercurrent of anxiety as I sipped my lukewarm coffee. Her response was brief, almost dismissive. It was fine, just the usual meetings. Yet, as she spoke, I noticed her eyes flickering towards her phone, and for a moment, a look of discomfort passed over her features. My heart sank at that instant. From that moment on, I began timing her absences with an almost obsessive precision, tracking the duration of her phone calls and even jotting down the names that flashed across her screen. Names that I didn't recognize and that sent shivers down my spine. Night after night, as the silence of our home deepened, the questions in my mind multiplied. Had I sacrificed too much of myself for the sake of our family? Was the promise of unwavering love nothing more than a fragile illusion, destined to shatter under the weight of concealed truths? Despite my desperate hope that our bond was resilient, the mounting evidence, the prolonged silences, the furtive glances, the discrepancies in her stories, began to erode the foundation of the life we had built together. By the end of that tense week, those quiet doubts had transformed into a burning need for certainty. I realized that ignoring these ominous signs might come at a price far greater than the temporary discomfort of confrontation. With a heavy heart and trembling resolve, I braced myself for what was to come, knowing that each passing moment increased the risk of losing not just our trust, but the future we had once envisioned. Part 3. Late one humid evening, when Nayla once again announced she was leaving for what she claimed was a business trip. My heart thundered with a mixture of dread and desperate determination. By this time, the seeds of suspicion had taken deep root, and I could no longer remain silent in the face of my mounting fears. I resolved that I must follow her, if only to uncover the truth behind her repeated departures and the vague explanations that haunted my thoughts. Under the sultry twilight of Miami, I slipped out of our home, each step heavy with apprehension and the desperate hope that I might finally unravel the mystery. The familiar streets of our Miami suburb, usually aglow with the warm radiance of streetlights and filled with the comforting hum of nightly life, now transformed into a surreal corridor of neon reflections and shifting shadows. Rain slicked the pavement, turning every step into a careful negotiation between caution and resolve. My mind raced as I trailed her along these altered paths. A route I thought I knew so well now led me into uncharted territory. Each footstep was laden with the twin weights of fear and a burning need to know the truth. At first, Nayla moved confidently with a small group of colleagues. Their laughter and polished professionalism briefly soothed my aching heart. But gradually, she drifted away from them, her pace slowing as she ventured down a quieter, unfamiliar street. My pulse quickened. The ambient noise of the city faded into an eerie stillness, replaced by the soft, rhythmic patter of rain and the pounding of my anxious heart. I maintained a discreet distance, watching her silhouette until she reached a sleek, upscale resort, an establishment that exuded an air of luxury and intimacy far removed from the sterile corridors of corporate meetings. I parked my car a short distance away and found a hidden vantage point near a large window. There, bathed in soft ambient light, I watched as Nayla stepped into the grand lobby. For a brief moment, she appeared alone, her face composed and her eyes calm. But then, as if drawn by fate, a handsome stranger emerged. His presence was magnetic, a blend of rugged charm and understated confidence that sent a jolt of alarm through me. Their interaction was unmistakable. A shared laugh, a gentle touch on the arm, glances that spoke of an intimacy I had never known. The truth struck me like a physical blow. This was no ordinary business trip. It was a hidden vacation, a romantic escapade born of desire and deception that repaid my sacrifices with a searing betrayal. I fumbled with my phone, capturing every fleeting detail, the soft murmur of their laughter, the whispered words that carried the warmth of genuine intimacy, and the way her hand rested lightly in his. Every captured moment imprinted itself on my mind, painting a picture that was brutally at odds with the story she had told me. Returning home in a daze, my hands trembling and my heart heavy with bitter realization, I locked myself in my study. Under the harsh glow of my desk lamp, I poured every agonizing detail into my journal, describing the way her eyes glimmered with secret delight in his presence, the subtle tilt of her head as she listened intently, and the soft cadence of her laughter that now held an undercurrent of forbidden passion. Each line in my journal was a painful reminder of the future I had once believed in, a future built on shared dreams, now crumbling beneath the weight of deception. That night, as the humid air pressed against the windows, I vowed that I would not allow this betrayal to remain hidden, that the truth, however excruciating, must be confronted, and that the price of my sacrifice demanded justice. Part 4. In the days that followed my heart-wrenching discovery, I transformed my personal anguish into an all-consuming, single-minded quest for irrefutable proof, a mission that devoured every waking moment. Every minor detail, every anomalous behavior I had once dismissed as an insignificant quirk, became an indispensable piece of the puzzle that would expose the full extent of Nayla's betrayal. I plunged into her digital world with an intensity that left me both physically drained and emotionally hardened. I meticulously sifted through her phone records, scrutinized her social media profiles, and dissected every digital conversation with an obsessive precision that blurred the lines between vigilance and despair. Every late-night text, every unexpected phone call, and every fleeting name that flashed across her screen was recorded in my journal as though each were a vital droplet in an ever-growing reservoir of evidence. A reservoir that threatened to overflow with undeniable truth. Countless sleepless nights were spent scouring every digital conversation. I saved screenshots of messages that, at first glance, appeared strictly professional, yet on closer inspection revealed flirtatious banter, coded language, and intimate confessions that should never have been hidden. These messages, masquerading as mere business letters, were, in reality, a chronicle of a secret romance, a narrative of longing and passion that shattered the foundation of our trust. Each revelation struck me like a shard of ice, carving deeper into the life we had so carefully built. Not content with textual evidence alone, I gathered every photo and short video clip I had covertly captured outside the resort. I spent countless hours digitizing these visual fragments and seamlessly integrating them with the myriad screenshots of intimate exchanges. With painstaking precision, I constructed a detailed timeline that spanned several weeks. A timeline that revealed how each of Nayla's so-called business trips had slowly morphed into a series of clandestine getaways, marked by covert meetings and hushed confessions. Every entry was annotated with exact dates, times, and even the specific locations where these hidden rendezvous occurred. Slowly but inexorably, the dossier emerged as a damning mosaic, a visual and written testament to a systematic betrayal that left no room for denial. Yet, even as the physical evidence mounted, a profound internal conflict stirred within me. In the lonely hours of the night, I would sit alone before the compiled files, digital relics of my shattered trust, and wonder if my relentless pursuit of proof was gradually erasing the compassionate man I once was. Was I in danger of losing the gentle soul who had believed so deeply in forgiveness and the sanctity of our family? Each time such doubts crept in, I forced myself to recall the tender, secret moments I had witnessed between Nayla and her paramour. The furtive glances, the soft smiles, the whispered promises, and with every recollection, my resolve hardened further. The bitter truth became all too clear. The cost of betrayal was far too high to allow even a trace of compassion to remain unchallenged. By the end of an agonizing week, my dossier was complete. A comprehensive, unassailable chronicle of every lie, every furtive meeting, every stolen moment of intimacy that had defiled the very foundation of our future together. As I pored over the final pages of my journal, my hands trembling and my heart heavy with the accumulated evidence, I knew with grim certainty that the time would soon come to confront Nayla with this damning truth. When that moment arrived, nothing would be able to hide the systematic betrayal I had painstakingly documented. The dossier was not merely a collection of evidence. It was the embodiment of every broken promise, every sacrifice repaid in deceit. A mirror reflecting a painful reality I could no longer ignore. With a heavy heart and a resolve forged in sorrow and tempered by relentless determination, I closed my journal and stared at the amassed files on my desk. In that quiet, dark moment, I felt a transformation taking hold. A metamorphosis from the compassionate, hopeful man I once was into someone driven by an unyielding need to force the truth into the unforgiving light. Every page, every meticulously recorded detail, was a battle cry against the deception that had so irreparably wounded me. I steeled myself for the inevitable confrontation that would shatter the fragile illusion of security I had once known. Part 5. The day of reckoning arrived beneath a leaden sky, its dull light mirroring the crushing weight of my grief and the turbulent storm of emotions raging within me. I had prepared for this day for what felt like an eternity. A day when every hidden truth would be forced into the harsh, unyielding light. I invited Nayla to our home under the pretext of discussing our future. A final, desperate attempt to salvage what remained of the dreams we had once nurtured. In our living room, once a sanctuary of laughter and tender memories, I meticulously arranged the dossier on the coffee table. Printed photographs, detailed journal entries, and digital recordings were arrayed like silent witnesses, each one an irrefutable testament to the systematic betrayal that had invaded our life. When Nayla entered, the confident smile I had once adored faltered as her eyes fell upon the damning evidence. For a long, suffocating moment, neither of us spoke. The air was thick with unspoken accusations and the heavy burden of despair. Then my voice, laden with sorrow yet seething with a fury that had been held in check for too long, broke the silence. "Nayla," I began, each word trembling with heartbreak and anger. "I sacrificed everything for our family. I gave up my career, my ambitions, everything to build a future with you. And now I see that all those promises were nothing but illusions." Her eyes widened in shock, and she stammered feebly, insisting it was just a mistake. "A lapse born of loneliness," she claimed. But every piece of evidence, every recorded detail, rendered her explanations hollow and meaningless. I recounted with painstaking clarity every late night, every secret call, every intimate message that confirmed the betrayal. Each word fell like a hammer blow upon the fragile foundation of trust we had so dearly built as her defenses crumbled into quiet sobs. I warned her that the truth was now irrevocably exposed and that the price of my sacrifice demanded consequences far beyond mere apologies. With my heart aching and my spirit hardened by months of silent suffering, I turned away and left her alone in our home. A home that now echoed with the silence of shattered dreams and broken promises. Stepping out into the chill afternoon, I vowed that Nayla, and, by extension, the man who had exploited our trust, would soon have to face the full consequences of their actions. My sacrifice was too profound to be repaid with deception, and I knew that the next chapter of my life would demand retribution. A reckoning that would force every broken promise into the unforgiving light of truth. Each step I took away from that house was laden with the memories of lost dreams and every unspoken word, and I knew in my heart that there would be no turning back. Now, as I stand at the crossroads of a fractured future, I feel the weight of betrayal and the cost of every sacrifice reverberate within me. The life I had envisioned, one of shared dreams, trust, and quiet happiness, has crumbled into dust. In the silence of that painful afternoon, I resolved that I must rebuild my life from these ruins, even if it means walking a path of relentless retribution. I am determined to reclaim my honor, even if it means facing the harshest truths in the glaring light of day. Part 6. In the immediate days after that fateful confrontation, our home became a desolate stage for echoes of heartbreak. I returned each day to a silence that screamed with memories. Rooms once filled with the laughter of family now lay barren and cold. I found myself wandering through hallways as if searching for fragments of the life we'd once built together. The vibrant energy of our past had been replaced by a heavy, oppressive stillness that mirrored the shattered remnants of trust within me. Every time I passed the study, where I had compiled the dossier, every painstaking detail of betrayal, I felt its weight like a physical force pressing down upon my chest. I began to notice how the everyday details of life seemed warped. The once comforting hum of the air conditioner now sounded like a mournful dirge. Even the golden Miami sunlight that streamed through our windows now fell upon our home in muted, sorrowful hues. I questioned every decision I'd made. The sacrifices, the dreams, the promises I'd held so dearly. Each day, I wrestled with an overwhelming sense of loss, as if I were drowning in a sea of regret and betrayal. Friends and neighbors, once warm and reassuring, now regarded me with a mixture of pity and distance. Whispers followed me in public. In quiet corners of my favorite cafe, I caught fragments of conversations. "He looks so lost. I heard he's never been the same since." Their words stung, and I realized that my personal tragedy had become a public spectacle, an indelible mark on the man I once was. I felt isolated, not only by the betrayal of the woman I loved but by the relentless judgment of a community that could only see scandal, not the quiet, insidious collapse of trust. At work, my focus had shattered. Business, once my proud domain, now felt trivial against the enormity of what I had lost. I spent long hours staring at spreadsheets and board reports, but my mind wandered to memories of happier times. A time when my wife's smile was genuine and our dreams felt secure. Now, every familiar routine carried the bitter taste of deception. I began to wonder if I had been naive, if my sacrifices had blinded me to the truth, and whether the future I had envisioned was nothing more than an illusion. Yet amidst this desolation, I also began to feel the first stirrings of a raw, unyielding determination. I realized that if I were to salvage any semblance of dignity or hope, I would have to face the fallout head-on. I started taking long walks along the Miami shoreline at dusk, the rhythmic sound of crashing waves echoing my inner turmoil. In the cool, salt-laden air, I confronted the reality that life was irrevocably altered, and that the painful burden of betrayal had to be acknowledged before it could be overcome. I reread the dossier over and over, each page a testament to the systematic dismantling of the life I thought we had. With every detail, my grief deepened, but so too did my resolve. I realized that to move forward, I had to transform this heartbreak into something else. An energy, perhaps, that could drive me to rebuild what had been lost. Though the pain was nearly unbearable, I resolved that I would not let this betrayal define me entirely. I was determined to reclaim my future, even if that meant embracing a long, uncertain path of healing and retribution. Part 7. As the weeks turned into months, the raw edges of my grief began to dull, replaced by a slow, tentative acceptance of the new reality. I found myself at a crossroads, torn between the desire for revenge and a desperate need to rediscover who I was beyond the pain. My home, once a sanctuary of shared dreams, now felt like a monument to broken promises. Yet amid the pervasive sorrow, I began to notice subtle signs of transformation. The chill in the air seemed less biting on my long, solitary walks. The ocean, ever constant, whispered of possibilities beyond the wreckage of my past. I returned to the places that had once brought me joy, my favorite quiet cafe, the sunlit park where my children played, and slowly, I started to feel a glimmer of hope. It was as if, in the quiet moments of reflection, a new version of me was emerging from the ruins of despair. I began to write again, first in private letters, then in a blog that chronicled my journey from sacrifice to betrayal and toward a future yet undefined. My words, raw and unfiltered, resonated with others who had faced similar heartbreak, and I realized that sharing my pain might help mend not only my own spirit, but also those of others. At work, I dedicated myself to expanding my business, channeling my sorrow and anger into a drive that propelled me to new heights. The lessons of betrayal taught me the importance of resilience and the need to adapt. I forged ahead, determined that no one could steal my ambition, that I could rebuild my empire even if the foundation of my personal life had been shattered. I began to see that sometimes the greatest adversities can kindle a new purpose, an opportunity to redefine one's legacy in ways that honor both the pain and the strength required to overcome it. Slowly, the whispers in the community became less about pity and more about quiet admiration for the man I was becoming. A man who, despite a devastating betrayal, was choosing to rise again. I sought solace in therapy and in the support of a few close friends, and in those moments, I began to understand that the journey toward healing is not linear. It is fraught with setbacks and moments of doubt, but it is also marked by unexpected victories. A smile from a stranger, the laughter of my children, the gentle promise of a new day. Now, as I stand at the precipice of this uncertain future, I carry with me both the legacy of my past sacrifices and the hard-earned wisdom of living through betrayal. I have become both the avenger and the wounded, a man whose heart has been scarred yet still beats with a fragile hope for redemption. In the quiet moments before dawn, when the darkness of night yields to the tentative glow of a new day, I allow myself to believe that one day, from these ruins, a path toward healing might emerge. Until that day arrives, I remain a living testament to the bitter truth. The price of betrayal is steep, and while the pursuit of vengeance may offer fleeting relief, It ultimately transforms us in ways that are as irreversible as they are profound. In the weeks after everything had erupted, I found myself at a crossroads, caught between the crushing weight of my shattered past and the uncertain promise of a future that might someday be rebuilt. Each day felt like a delicate balancing act between seething anger and the slow, painful stirrings of renewal. I had spent so long in the darkness of betrayal and retribution that now, for the first time, I felt an unfamiliar, almost imperceptible glimmer of hope that I began by forcing myself to step away from the bitter remnants of that fateful confrontation. The home that once echoed with the sorrow of broken promises now stood silent, a monument to what had been lost. Determined to reclaim my life, I started taking long walks along the Miami shoreline at dawn, where the gentle roar of the ocean and the soft caress of the cool sea breeze offered me a quiet sanctuary. During these solitary mornings, the relentless memories of betrayal slowly began to loosen their grip. I found that in the stillness of the early hours, with the sun just beginning to chase away the night, I could feel the first tentative rays of healing, each wave, each gust of wind whispering that renewal was possible. The transformation was not instantaneous. It was gradual and fraught with moments of despair. I returned to my study less frequently, no longer obsessing over the digital dossier that had once defined my existence. Instead, I started filling a new journal with reflections on the journey ahead. I wrote about the contradictions within me, the part that still burned with the need for justice and the part that craved forgiveness, not only for others but for myself. I questioned whether I could ever truly move on from the sting of betrayal, but amid that inner turmoil, I discovered a subtle shift. The images of pain, once raw and unyielding, began to blur into memories. And in that softening, I sensed that perhaps the future could be reclaimed, piece by piece. Work, too, took on a new meaning. The sports club empire that had once been a battlefield for success now became a platform for renewal. I immersed myself in expanding the business to New York, not solely as a means of escape, but as a way to channel my energy into something constructive. Each new project, every negotiation, reminded me that while the personal wounds ran deep, my drive and ambition could be redirected. Slowly, as the clubs flourished and my public persona regained strength, I began to see that life might offer redemption even after the most painful betrayals. I also reached out to a trusted few, friends and even a professional counselor, who helped me confront the emotional debris that lay scattered in my wake. Their gentle support allowed me to see that the journey toward healing was not about erasing the past, but about integrating it into a broader narrative of growth. I learned that forgiveness, though it might seem like surrender, was also a courageous act of reclaiming one's power. In these quiet conversations, I began to understand that the path to redemption was not paved with vengeance alone. It required the willingness to let go of the relentless grip of bitterness. One particularly crisp morning, as I sat by the window watching Miami awaken, I realized that I was no longer the man who had once been defined solely by pain and betrayal. There was a cautious optimism in my thoughts, a belief that even shattered dreams could be gathered and reassembled into something new. I started making small changes around the house, repainting walls, rearranging furniture, as a symbolic gesture of my intent to rebuild. Each brushstroke, each new arrangement, was a step away from the ruins of the past and a move toward a future yet undefined. In the months that followed, I found solace in creative pursuits. I returned to writing, not as a catharsis for anger, but as a quiet act of self-discovery. My words, once filled with the bitter echo of loss, now began to carry tentative notes of hope. I shared some of these reflections in a small blog, and to my surprise, my story resonated with others. Their support, their shared experiences of betrayal and healing, provided me with a renewed sense of connection. It was as if, in embracing my pain, I had found a way to transform it into something that could help not just me, but others who walked a similar path. Though the wounds of betrayal remained, I slowly learned that they did not have to define me forever. I began to envision a future where the legacy of sorrow might eventually yield to a gentle, if tentative, peace. A future where I could honor the past without being imprisoned by it. As I continue to navigate this uncertain path, I carry with me the hard-won lessons of resilience, the bittersweet memory of love once lost, and a cautious hope that redemption, however fragile, is within reach. Until that day arrives, I remain a man shaped by both the pain of betrayal and the possibility of renewal. A living testament to the fact that even in the aftermath of heartbreak, there can be a slow, steady emergence of light from the shadows. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed this journey, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories like this one. Got thoughts or experiences you'd like to share? Drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.